researched for 4 years. It was so much fun. Every time, I would match with someone, they would say, oh, are you really writing a book? And can we go on a date so I can be in your book? And I was like, honey, you're already in my book. I've been screenshotting all of our conversations. And of course, those conversations are in the book, but just disguised with a bit of a cowboy emoji.
All right, guys, Andi from Australia, down under. Let's go.
I know. Look, I'm from Australia, but I've been living in Los Angeles for almost 3 years. I came on this extraordinary talent visa because of my work as a wellness expert and dating and lifestyle coach. And I think, being called extraordinarily talented is amazing because, if the government thinks that you need to be here above everyone else, then I guess it was a gift. So I packed up 2 suitcases, my son and a bag of Lego and just started a new life. Happy to be in Vegas, finally to be on your show, Sean.
Yeah, we've been trying to make this happen for a while.
Yeah, and here we are, so magic.
Yeah, we're going to dive into all your books. You got a lot, 4 books. Just dropped Treasure Chest, right?
Yeah, actually, Treasure Chest is my 10th book. It's about exposing explants and empowering you. I couldn't bring all of them. I'd need a suitcase. And it's kind of like every time I birth another book, I'm like, why am I doing this again? But then I have an idea on how to help culture as a visionary, a researcher, and an author. And then, we write something else. And so what's really present and important right now in terms of health and wellness is removing inflammatory drivers. That's what Treasured Chest is about. It's about exposing the explant industry, which is removing breast implants, and empowering the person to do so and come back to their divine organic state again.
Yeah.
Now, the book is really, incredible because when I removed my implants, let's address the elephant in the room. Why on earth would a wellness expert even put something toxic like that in her body to begin with, right? It was one of those things. I was almost dying. In fact, I was dying. My body was slowly shutting down. The natural detoxification pathways weren't working anymore the way they should and the way our body's designed. And so I had to address the trauma of the reason why I did this in the first place. And a lot of other people had came to me and said, you know what, I did this for trauma reasons too. So it's interesting the movement that it's created in people reading the book and realizing sort of their why. But, things like hair loss was happening. So rapid hair loss is a symptom. Sudden food intolerances. You have a laundry list of symptoms like anxiety, inflammation, depression, feelings of death even as the body can't, expel this foreign body from the body, if you like. It creates what's called MCAS or mast cell activation syndrome. And that's basically the mast cells or the mast cells are the immune cells and they start attacking each other because they want to expel that foreign body within the body. So, I had all of these symptoms and more: loss of libido, dry eyes, inability to sweat. And I started joining the dots and eventually I realized I needed to explant. And it was, that getting ready to shed moment where you have to do the deep work before you embrace your organic state again was wonderful. It was really hard. I cried rivers. But then like others, as soon as I woke up from that operating table, I was like, I'm free. I feel so much better and so many symptoms go away.
Wow.
Now, 6 surgeons and an MRI said I was fine. But when I got woken up from that surgery table, the professor, the surgeon, who I chose to fly all the way to Australia from America to do it with him because he explants, he does an implant, and he does the data to support that this is real. A lot of the surgeons are kind of saying, well, BII doesn't exist, breast implant illness isn't an official diagnosis yet. This is dangerous because it means that we can't have successful suits against the product manufacturer or the original implanting surgeon themselves. But this professor woke me up and said, wow, you were right. You're better than an MRI. The rupture was exactly where you were pinpointing it to be on the left side. He said, you taught me a lot today and I'm going to go back and check all of my patients because, he went and got this new data to support that indeed implants are the inflammatory driver, creating a cytokine storm, an inflammatory response. And, now there's no denying you don't have to have a rupture for you to feel those breast implant illness symptoms.
Wow. And there's a lot of women with breast implants, right?
Yeah. And, there were even in support groups like hiding in underground sort of Facebook support group culture, people like men with calf implants saying, wow, I found my tribe because I'm having the exact same symptoms. So it's not just women that it affects. Implants are in men and even the trans community as well.
Ever thought about how much EMF and radiation your body is exposed to every single day? From smartphones to Wi-Fi, modern technology never stops emitting invisible stressors that could disrupt brain function, hormone balance, and cellular health. That's where Aries comes in, the only scientifically validated solution designed to help your body adapt to today's technology. It's trusted by elite athletes, used by the UFC, WWE, Canada Basketball, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's backed by science, 100+ scientists, and 40+ institutions confirm its effectiveness. It's patented, peer-reviewed, clinically proven, and publicly traded Wi-Fi is the most tested, researched, and validated EMF solution on the market. Upgrade your biology to keep up with modern technology. Protect yourself with Aries today. Click the link below to learn more.
So they're starting to join the dots, and I went on the Today Show, and that's when I got inundated with messages from people going, help me. I think I've got breast implant illness as well. And they talk about it feeling like medically gaslit, they're saying. You know, I get told I was fine, but I'm not, and I know that I'm fine. Then it comes down to, Sean, the cost. So this is actually a life-threatening illness operation. And I discovered that it was life-threatening, even though BII isn't an official diagnosis. Yet in Australia, if you cannot afford the $14,000 to potentially $30,000 surgery, you're literally dying to be well.
Jeez.
And insurance won't cover it unless there's a rupture. And sometimes medicine isn't a perfect science, so those ruptures aren't detected. I mean, they're looking for a traditional hole, but it could be an entire gel bleed. And in my case, it was a fold that became a weak point. The interesting thing is that in Australia, you can access what's called superannuation on compassionate grounds for a life-threatening illness operation. So in discovering that, I just tell everybody to do that, but I just don't know what to do with the public in America. This is why my work in America is so important, having had that, you know, extraordinary talent visa and being asked to continue to do my work here in the country, because I started traveling backwards and forwards from Australia with my 10 books and going on live TV interviews. And every time I'd come off, the producer would say to my publicist, we need that girl. She's amazing. We need her in America. America needs help. You know, she should be a regular. And it planted a seed. And I was like, you're right. But it's now such an important time for me to be here, seeing that there is new government that have Secretary Kennedy in place and his work in, you know, exposing corruption and the forever customer. And that's what this basically is. Women who can't afford, or anyone who can't afford the explant surgery, which isn't just removing the implants, but also removing that surrounding scar tissue. That's called the capsule. So the operation's called a complete capsulectomy or a total capsulectomy. The body has this innate intelligence and it wants to wall off that foreign body within the body by surrounding it with a scar tissue, you see? And so when they're having the en-bloc surgery, which is an oncological procedure, or the total capsulectomy, they're peeling away like an eggshell away from perhaps could be connected to arteries or a rib cage. So it's very dangerous. It's a much bigger scar as well, which is why on the book, like I'm showing the scars, being proud of those war wounds, I called them. But then removing that and then opening up the capsule and then inspecting the bag. Now the body's protecting that potential rupture or gel bleed from going into the rest of the system. Wow. But hey, even the capsule's our system. So everything's connected, you see. So this surgery is very specific. You may not be able to have a successful lawsuit. You're then like left to heal emotionally, physically, things like that. It's not acknowledged even as a real illness yet it's an entire systemic response that the FDA have even put a black box warning on this. And so ultimately, at what cost are we not only doing this to ourselves, but hiding the information? And so, you know, the government and the MAHA group, Make America Healthy Again, are really key in this time right now to understand what we need to do to help people who are silently suffering.
I love that. Yeah, there's so many women that feel the need to get cosmetic procedures, whether it's breast or butt implants, right? It's concerning the health risks of all these surgeries.
And the BBL operation is actually, it's similar, but having BBL is even more dangerous. Not only have we got the inflammatory driver already there creating the cytokine storm, but now you've got extra pressure as you're sitting down on something that's not designed to have that sort of weight. And then you've even got, you know, heat that's being produced by sitting down, and the implant's not designed to withstand heat, and certainly not even in a sauna where women are thinking, I can't sweat anymore. My natural detoxification pathways are shutting down. I need to sweat to detox whatever is in me. But that's when a woman starts to get what's called contracture, where the implant starts to look deformed because it's desperately wanting to come out of its body, out of the body. It's got nowhere to go. And I'm like smiling because I'm so relieved that I didn't die, and that now I feel called on this mission, if you like, to help save others.
Wow. You've done a lot of research on bras too, right?
On which one?
On women's bras and how they're toxic.
It's funny that you use the word toxic and, we can label things as toxic and dangerous and all those sorts of things. But ultimately, it's what we also make it mean. The only way that I would say that a bra would be, dangerous would be when we're wearing underwire. Underwire is not healthy for you because it cuts off circulation. But the most dangerous time to wear an underwire bra is when you're pregnant or breastfeeding. Women have, milk ducts and they can get blocked from having pressure like underwire bra, putting that on their sensitive parts. And that's when a woman can develop what's called mastitis. This is also a life-threatening illness. I mean, women end up with intense fevers and hospitalized from having mastitis. And yet they're not all told that they shouldn't be wearing bras. Perhaps they're told when they're breastfeeding, but they shouldn't be wearing it when, they're even pregnant, when that milk is starting to produce. And so what's also weird about mastitis is that can happen when you're not feeding on demand. So my second book was called The Modern Day Mother. That's Babies in Sleep from Womb to One. And it's about attachment parenting. But I don't like to call it attachment parenting because it should just be called respectful parenting or parenting. But there's lots of research to show how when you're actually responding to the baby's needs, it's age appropriate. You're hormonally and biologically connected anyway to act when that baby cries, to move. But yet we get told by the modern world to leave it, control cry, let it go to sleep. Let's look at the clock. Let's look at a book. But feeding on demand makes it sound like, you're in control. The baby's in control of you. But what a bad mother if the baby just needs a hug. The thing is though, when you do actually surrender to that beautiful parenting style, you have what's called synchronization of heartbeats, breathing, and body temperature. It's not dissimilar to when you choose to fall asleep with somebody like a partner in the bed. Both people, when spooning, actually start to fall asleep together at the same time when their heartbeats and breathing synchronize.
Wow.
So think about the baby's brain and how that's developed. Firstly, you may not know this, but the human brain is actually in 3 parts: rational, mammalian, and reptilian parts of the brain. And that isn't fully integrated and doesn't become one brain until about the age of 5 or 7. So that's why there's that saying, show me the boy until he is 7 and then I'll show you the man. It's because we're being programmed. Now, if you try and sleep train a baby and ignore its age appropriate cries for, regulation of those things, it's really traumatic on that neurological development. And so as the brain starts to integrate and form and become one brain at the age of, 7, that's when you can start having those adult conversations with it. But before that, it's a primal instinct. And even though we have evolved as species and we know that we live in safe houses away from the lion that's going to come and eat us, the way in which the human brain's developed hasn't changed.
That's fascinating. So ages 0 to 7 are really important.
Crucial. And even in womb. Yeah. I mean, don't get me started on what happens in the womb and the birthing process itself. There is so much intervention that's unnecessary. I was lucky enough to have, one of the top, midwives that always said, you're the last birth I'm ever going to have. And then was there for me. And she would do things like, if we were on the clock in the hospital system, if you don't push out this baby, we're going to come in with forceps, suction, all that sort of stuff, drugs.
Jeez.
And that's just what happens because we live in a litigious world. But she would do things like, and she was in her late 80s, knock over that sterilized tray with all the things and go, oh no, and then they'd have to go and sterilize it again. And when everybody would leave, she would turn to the mother and go, are you with me? We're going to do this now,
Wow.
Take control of that birth. Because as soon as a baby's out, it's everything on their terms, vitamin K injections, we have cutting the cord immediately. And there's still rich nutrition in that cord and that pulse. As you know, there's stem cells. We're supposed to have what's called a lotus birth. You're supposed to actually wrap up that, womb, the uterus with the muslin, the cloth, something cotton and natural, organic. Allow mum and bub to continue to be connected until those 2 humans decide it's time to cut the cord, and eventually it falls away. And then most people just bury that into, a tree, and then it produces the most beautiful fruit.
Really?
And so, yeah, you think about how we're supposed to live and that constant, giving back to the earth and being connected to the earth.
Wow, I didn't know it could turn into a fruit.
Well, just the nutrition that comes from that part of our body helps the soil to be more fertile.
Oh, got it.
Yes.
Got it.
I should have
That makes
explained
sense.
myself a bit better.
No, that's cool though. I'm leaning towards a natural birth when I have kids.
Oh, I'm so glad you're even thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, hospitals just scare me. The number of C-sections going on right now.
Yes. And how is, the choice to have natural births or home births in Australia, in America rather?
It's pretty easy. Yeah, you could, it probably costs more because insurance doesn't cover it, but
Yes.
I'm lucky to be in the position where I could do that. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
I think the key is to appoint a really good midwife, even if you are going to be in the hospital system, because then you can have whether it's a doula or some sort of support person that wants to encourage the natural birth. But yeah, again, this is all in my books and in my coaching. So if anyone's about to have a baby or, having breastfeeding issues or anything, I got taught by the best. And I've been doing this for actually 31 years professionally. I
Wow.
know I look really good for my age. I'm 72
No, you're not.
and I'm all natural.
You're not 72. That'd be crazy.
No, I'm not 72. But you thought I was what?
I thought you were
38?
30s. Yeah.
I'm actually 52 in July.
No way.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for
That's
the compliment.
insane.
Even with this unflattering lighting.
Yeah. That's incredible. Well
So,
done.
I really walk my talk, Sean, and it shows. And again, if you want to talk about Botox, injectables, those again are inflammatory drivers, which actually speed up, the aging process itself. And also it's muscle paralysis. So whilst I don't judge anyone for anything they do on their health journey, I had to even forgive myself for what I did with the breast implants. I think it's all part of your journey, but it's important to at least be informed so you can make informed choices about what's actually happening with your body and then join the dots.
Yeah. Yeah. The Botox stuff is nuts. I mean, you're in LA. You're probably seeing it daily
Oh my
out
gosh.
there with actors and actresses.
Look, I think I've also seen a lot of this stuff going on in Vegas as well. Maybe they came from LA, but it is that we are looking at ourselves too much on a screen. We're not designed to actually look at our reflection that often, right?
Yeah.
First, we may have looked at ourselves in the reflection of a pool, a lake, a river when we're drinking the water perhaps. And then it turned into the development of mirrors. And then now we're looking at selfies all the time, and that's unnatural. So it's making us paranoid,
Yeah.
We're not supposed to judge ourselves. And the word treasured chest, those 2 words were intentional because I didn't say boobs, tits, jugs, whatever. I'm using chest because that's what got us into this mess, right? It's what is behind the chest is your heart. So on the book cover, I'm holding my heart and saying, you've got this. This is what is your beauty. It's interesting because when a female fetus is being developed in the womb, those things that are actually making her breasts are immune cells. So we are so much more than what we've sexualized it all to be,
Yeah.
if you like.
That's incredible.
It's very intentional.
You also wrote a book on dating, right? Was that a recent one?
The dating book was about, I think I put it on tour about 8 years ago, and
Okay.
it was the most fun press tour I've ever done because everybody wants to learn about dating.
Yeah.
And it was at a time where there was hookup culture.
Tinder,
And-
right?
Tinder first came out and there was no sort of book of rules on how to date online. And so I started researching and I wrote one, and I researched for 4 years. It was so much fun. Every time, I would match with someone, they would say, "Oh, are you really writing a book? And can we go on a date so I can be in your book?" And I was like, "Honey, you're already in my book." I've been screenshotting all of our conversations. And of course, those conversations are in the book, but just disguised with a bit of a cowboy emoji or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, dating online is just another tool. It's not like that's the way you have to meet your partner when you sign up for a dating app. It's designed to help you sort of get back in the art of flirting. And we have to remember that courting or flirting is supposed to be so fun. And so when you take the fun out of that, maybe you're not ready, maybe you're in this desperate need to just find someone. But the healthiest relationships are the ones that we all know you find them when you're not looking for them. So kind of take a bit of that philosophy into the dating app world. But my favorite chapter is weeding out the weirdos and the fake people, because there are a lot out there, and you could be, saving a whole bunch of time when you know how to get rid of those guys or girls. And I think the most important thing is to be safe online. And then also just have a conversation on video or call to ascertain if there really is a connection before you meet up. Because I remember, I was speaking to someone who I thought was going to be fantastic. And then when I picked up the phone, a really high-pitched voice and he just talked like that. And you know what? That's going to be fine for some people, but I was just like, I can't listen to that for the rest of my life. So I kind of just, ended that one. But dating apps are a funny one because the psychology behind that all is programming the brain that when you get that match, it goes boom. There's a lot of, graphic design and timing of the speed of how the app's designed to make you impulsively think, hey, we matched, we're getting married, or we're going on a date. And my whole speed dating movement, understanding how fast dating apps work is designed to kind of bring it back to slow dating. Okay, we matched, but now I'm still just getting to know you and I'm still going to flirt with whoever else is in my, outside world and kind of keep my funnel full and have a healthy approach to this. Take my time, get to know you slowly because you feel like you know them because you've seen a lot about them, but you really don't, right? You really don't know who this person is. You're just making up a fantasy of who you think they are based on a bunch of photos, videos, and comments and things. So the best thing to do is to ask for their other social media. Have a look at perhaps LinkedIn or Instagram, but not just see if they're real, but also see how they engage with the rest of the world. I love looking at sort of the comments underneath their post, if they'll let you access that or if the app is connected to it, because how they respond to somebody else's comments shows out how they're kind or how that person thinks. And once you see how a person thinks, that's when they become more attractive too.
That makes sense. How's dating in LA compared to Australia?
Yeah, I always thought that Americans were more chivalrous and that Aussies are a bit just kind of down to earth and they're not good at courting in that sort of a fashion. And trust me, American men really are. They're great at dating. However, there is the notion of LA men kind of having, whether they call it Peter Pan syndrome and just not really wanting anything real. There is some truth in that a lot of them are really focused on their jobs or they are living in La La Land. But, I think it's interesting to know. I mean, what's Vegas dating like?
I heard it's terrible. I feel like any major city will kind of have that kind of crowd.
What about people that come to the major city, but they're not from that city in itself? I think you've always found a gem when you found someone like that.
A needle in a haystack is what they call it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the type of person I would probably be attracted to.
Yeah. So you're looking to find someone unique because you are unique. And I think we usually get attracted to those who are similar to ourselves or opposite to ourselves. And it's important to be aware of that because when it's similar to yourself, it feels familiar and you're wanting to match with that person on that same vibrational frequency so that you can grow together in a healthy state. Or it could be something like trauma bonding. So it's very familiar and it's all you know. So it's important to be aware of that.
Right. Sometimes
when you're attracted to somebody who's completely opposite to you, it's also because that person perhaps is going to fill a void that you wished you had. So, you might be attracted to someone that are really, empowered in their finances and you aren't. And that's because you wished that you could be that.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, it's just important to note what it is that you're attracted to and how that dynamic's working so that you can grow together.
Absolutely. And since you look so young, that must affect the dynamics too, because my mother struggles with this.
Does your mom look really young?
She looks she's 60. She just turned 60, but she looks 40s.
Wow.
So she said when she's dating guys in their 60s, it's tough.
Because it's not an energy match, right?
Yeah, because they're out of shape too.
They're not looking after themselves, exactly. And so I definitely resonate with your mum. I have only up until now attracted men 20 years younger.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think it's usually between 15 and 20 years younger, but I haven't dated for about 3 years, to be honest
you're
with
picky.
you. Yeah. Is it picky? I think I've been very focused on parenting my awesome child. He's now 15, so it's ready. It's time to get back on the dating shelf. You got any single friends for me, Sean?
In their 30s? I might. We'll have to... Maybe I'll set up a little speed dating for you or something.
I'm sure you've got lots of followers. I'll have everyone sliding into my DMs now.
I'm sure they will be, yeah.
Although having said that, I am open to dating older than me if they do look after themselves. I've got a bit of a Kevin Costner crush type thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, for me, it's more about the connection, not the age. I'm with you on that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're not ageist because neither am I.
I'm not.
Ageism is a thing, right?
Yeah, I've dated older, I've dated younger, but yeah, it doesn't matter to me because like I feel like I'm pretty mature for my age. So I've always naturally been attracted to older people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All my friends are in their 30s, 40s.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's been like this forever, but why are we highlighting it now? Because we can see it, you know, and if it triggers something in you, it's because it's something you haven't learned to love about yourself yet. Like maybe you wish you could find someone in that fashion. Like, I don't know, have a think about why it's so triggering for you.
Yeah.
But if you do slide into my DMs, I promise I won't ghost you.
You've been ghosted before?
You know, not so much me, but yes, there was one experience that I wrote about from experience, and that was in one of my books called Where'd They Go? Where'd they go? You know, literally that's what ghosting's about. Ghosting's about like disappearing off the face of the earth. The person never actually replies to your text messages, your phone calls, your emails. It can happen in business. It can happen in the friendship zone as well, not just the dating world. And ghosting can really haunt you.
Yeah, it's happened to me a few times. It hurts.
Right. And what was the part? Was it the not being able to get the closure?
Yeah. Because like I just started getting in my own head about like, why did that person ghost me?
Yeah.
And I never found out.
So dealing with disappearance is one of my areas of expertise because I had a lot of wellness coaching clients that, you know, were coming forward to me and saying, this is a real thing. Like I feel really unwell as a result of not being able to get that closure, and listen to you even talking about it now. It never really leaves you. So in the back of my book, I've got 50 ways to deal with disappearance. But I think you may not ever get closure. So the closure actually comes the majority of the time from you. But if you really, really want to get sort of some reply out of that person, the important thing to remember is that humor is always a good thing to use when you want to actually have a conversation with the person that's ghosted you. And that's because they probably don't want confrontation, or they don't want to have the feeling of what that feels like. And I always say to my son when I'm parenting him, you know, it's always best to have the truth because it might hurt a little bit in the beginning, but we're always one sweaty palmed handshake away from being really, truly and happy, because both people are going to be happy at the end of the day. So if we're giving you happiness, I'm going to be happy. It's good karma, right? Yep. So you've got to have that sweaty palmed conversation, but not if you're coming across like this crazy person. So inject the humor. And the humor might be just a phrase that you text them like, you know, I thought Casper was supposed to be friendly.
That's actually clever. I'm going to try that next time I get ghosted.
And do you think you might get ghosted in the business world as well?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
So it's important not to take that, you know, personally. Sometimes people in companies leave and you didn't even realize they'd gone and there was a handover and things like that.
Yeah.
So the book Where'd They Go is great for people in sales as well. I really am a fan of closing and building relationships. And so anyone who may have been ghosted in business is going to find that book useful too.
It's inevitable in business. It could be as simple as like a podcast guest didn't show up or a partner stops responding for a few days, but it happens.
Did you eventually find out why that guest didn't show up? I mean, did they die?
No, the first major one was my accountant. He actually died. So we didn't file my taxes on time. And I was like, why did he ghost me? The second one was a guest, and I found out it was just a scheduling thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see, and it could just be something as simple as that. But we do live in this funny like online world, don't we? I mean, your show is called The Digital Social Hour. And so it's important to be able to navigate how we're interacting and, you know, just kind of merge that modern world into how we're designed to communicate, I guess. And I guess that's what the crusade is of all of my work, you know, in writing, in coaching and in educating, is that, you know, we find ways to be well and merge the modern world, whether it's a modern dating world, the modern parenting world, the modern ways we choose to eat, or, you know, be exposed or don't be exposed to environmental toxic stressors like EMFs and the water in which we drink. And not everybody can afford to even have, you know, a complete home filtration service.
How much did you spend on yours?
Well, you know, I was hoping to work with an Australian company called Complete Home Filtration System, but you have to have a house. And they were going to start opening up ways to do that in, you know, America. And there are American companies do that, but I'm renting at the moment.
Okay. I'm looking into mine right now.
Yeah.
So I just got a house.
Right.
So I'm looking into different home filtration systems.
Because, I mean, it's not just the water we drink, it's the water that we bathe in as well and brush our teeth with and all of those things. And, you know, it's our birthright to have clean water, right? Except, again, this is why I'm so grateful that we have Secretary Kennedy, because he's been successful with environmental health issues, being an attorney. And Making America Healthy Again is giving us that birthright back, looking at those issues that we didn't realize are making us sick, whether it's contaminated waters and parasites and chlorine and not just fluoride, but you look at the state of Utah, for example, and the new government's already made great headway with banning the fluoride that's in the water there. And I hope that the rest of the country, starts to follow suit.
Yeah, I hope so.
Never quick enough though, is it?
There's always birth control in the water too. So fluoride's just the first problem.
Right. And on the notion of birth control, I had a conversation recently with a friend and a coaching client about this. And it really does disrupt the entire system. It can take, up to a year or two to get the body back into balance.
Damn.
I was privy to some American medical journals when I owned a clinic in Australia. And it was before the OCP came out, which is the oral contraceptive pill. Mm-hmm. And these peers were writing backwards and forwards to each other before we had online stuff. And they were giving that journal and sort of with all the news updates, hey, we've come up with this OCP, this oral contraceptive pill. We think it's going to be a great new product. And then the following journal, the following week would write back in that letter, I don't think it's a good idea. It's going to disrupt all these hormones. It's going to create an imbalance and, we're going to have another issue. And then they wrote back and said, actually, we've already thought of that. And in 20 years' time, we're going to release something called HRT, a new drug. And so all of these women in their 40s, like a decade or so ago, started needing HRT.
Wow.
And it was all intentional. So, this is what I call the forever customer. And, in science, we learn cause and effect. We don't learn cause, effect, and side effect. Where's the side effects? And this is a side effect, of coming off this drug that you're taking daily. And on top of that, when I studied to become food, lifestyle, and wellness coach, and there was a nutrition component, it literally said in the studies that medication and drugs block micronutrition absorption. So here it is, this drug that women are taking, they're forgetting it's a drug on a daily basis. It's blocking the micronutrition absorption, which is vitamins and minerals, and that's what we need to stay well, and that's what we need to help the amygdala, the part of the brain that is responsible for shutting off the hunger mechanism when it's feeling full. Now it can't shut off because it's blocking the micronutrition absorption. And so we're constantly not satiated, we're not satisfied nutritionally, and we're searching for that something else. And so there's so many things that are associated with having the OCP. Now, I'm not saying get off your birth control because, I don't want all these unwanted births at my expense. And, full disclaimer here, I'm not a medical doctor, but research this for yourself or read my book, Connected, A Paradigm Shift in How We View Health, and find ways to learn about how your cycle works and create fertility, create, safe intimacy.
Yeah, the HRT and TRT, once you start taking that, it's tough to get off, I heard.
And that's because the body's just basically forgotten how to do what it's innately designed to do, right? Mm-hmm. So we're having to teach it all over again. And the body's just miraculous at self-healing if we give it the right environment. So my work is crucial in terms of understanding how the body works to heal and helping it to do that by giving it the right environment. So I've been a massive fan of the chiropractic profession. And I think that's one of the reasons why I look so young for my age, because I've been getting adjusted or at least checked weekly for about 28 years now. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, you ran a chiropractic practice, so you had it for free. And I was like, man, when I don't run this anymore, I'm paying for it because I value it. Prevention really is the cure. And there's a lot of research around chiropractic and epigenetics. We always have a genetic predisposition to X, Y, and Z, but those genes won't get expressed, or they will get expressed when you give it the wrong or the right environment. And so with chiropractic and epigenetics, the way it works is that you can change the genetic expression through thoughts, through food, and through chiropractic because we're changing the signal from brain to body. And by the time your child has a child, you've actually wiped away any genetic predisposition to X, Y, and Z.
Wow.
Because you've changed the signal from brain to body. You're changing that genetic expression, if you like.
I did not know that.
But you have to get adjusted, and then your child needs to get adjusted. And by the time they have a child, you've wiped it away, which is really empowering. And Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about this all the time. And I mention him in my book, Connected, A Paradigm Shift in How We View Health. And that's because it means that we don't have to be a victim to our genealogy and our genetic predisposition. We can take control of our health. Like now I look so much younger and I attribute it to that.
Love it.
The most important thing is to avoid medication where possible. Make sure your nervous system is working well with chiropractic care. Look after your, toxic stressors and your environmental health. and free your mind.
Well, shout out to Dave Asprey and Wasabi Method. They're chiropractors and they adjust me once a month.
Wow.
I feel amazing.
You see?
Yeah.
This is what allows you to continue to perform at the level that you do. You have literally guests in and out all day, every day. And for you to be able to function and have, optimal thought processes like this is because your nervous system is firing. I didn't know that Dave Asprey was a chiropractor, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Wasabi Method, a company. He's a owner and they're a chiropractor company.
Yeah. And how good is it when you're actually more connected to source? The innate intelligence that I always talk about is run by universal intelligence, right? We get a paper cut, and if that happens, we don't need to put acupuncture needles around it to bandage it up. The cells already bind and start to heal on its own. That's the innate intelligence.
Right.
But what's running that process is the universal intelligence. But some people like to call it God. And if you're not spiritual and you don't believe in God, you could use the acronym Grand Organized Design, which basically means it's something greater than us. The universal intelligence is running the innate intelligence. And so this chiropractic philosophy is that your body has the ability to heal itself through the workings of that nervous system, which is the innate intelligence. And how do we know that? Because the nervous system is the master controller of every system in the body. It controls the muscular system, the immune system, the endocrine system, the reproductive system. All the systems is run by that conductor of the orchestra, the nervous system. And so when we make that nervous system work so much better, then everything works better, right?
Yeah.
And in 2009, I won an award from the Chiropractors Association of Australia for my dedication to the profession in public education.
Love it.
Yeah, it changed my life, Sean.
That's awesome. A lot of people have issues with their nervous system, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't matter how positive you want to be or, you want to change your thought processes. If you have something physiologically pressing on your lifeline, which is the spine and the nerves that branch off that, which is connected to the brain, it does not matter how positive you want to be until you literally take the pressure off that spinal cord. You're not functioning optimally. And you don't see any depressed people walking around like this with beautiful posture.
True.
Because the physiology changes the chemistry and in turn our emotional status. And we start to come forward as you see people with aging because they're protecting their hearts, their nervous system is in fight or flight. And that fight or flight creates all sorts of issues, right? And so it's a cascade effect of everything going south, literally. And so opening up your posture. Your posture is the window to your spine. And it's my favorite chapter. There was a doctor, in the book Connected, there was a doctor called Henry Windsor, a medical doctor, and he wanted to disprove the theory of chiropractic. And so going into these studies, he actually ended up proving the theory of chiropractic. However, it's not chiropractic philosophy. This is just sheer anatomy. This is just how our bodies are designed. So it's not even my belief system. Look into it yourself.
Yeah. What's the next book or project you're working on?
Oh my God. I'm so exhausted. It's so addictive writing books. I've done 10. And every time I write one, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And then I get an idea for another. I'd love to talk about, how to age well. And there are so many things maybe, that I can bring into this. But I'm still marinating. What do you think it should be? What do you think people need to hear?
That would be a good one. And you're living proof of it too. I respect authors that actually walk the walk like you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It gets to the point where I'm kind of I'm so on path because I'm walking my talk and it shows. Now it finally shows. I'm like, hey guys, you're going to listen to what I'm going to say now finally because this is living proof, right?
Women at 52 are graying. They're not looking like you. So,
and there's nothing wrong also Sean, with those who have gray hair and are aging, with wrinkles. I think it's a privilege to age. I mean, if you look at the Japanese philosophy kintsugi, it's about when something breaks, you're gluing it back together with gold, not clear glue, because we're proud of our cracks and our flaws and the things that we've gone through. I mean, I was a ballet dancer for, many years and I bandaged up my feet like a concubine to make them fit inside the point shoes so that would block off the pain and just keep dancing. And my feet would be bleeding and I'd wake up in the night with calf cramps and stuff. I look at my feet now and I'm like, oh my gosh, this tells a story about who I am. So our scars and our wrinkles, they all tell a story and that's beautiful. And that's what I want to bring people back to, embracing that. However, you don't have to age the way you've been taught.
I love that. Anything else you want to touch on or close off with, Andi?
Yeah, look, I think there's no time than now. The average person lives until about the age of 82, 86, let's say. And that's, 82 or 86 summers. How old are you now? And how many summers do you have left? And what are you going to do with those summers? And do you want to be average? I know I don't. So this is like motivation enough to actually start, wellness coaching or whatever it is you want to do that makes you feel well. And the other thing is that the leading cause of death in the world is iatrogenesis in the modern world. Did you know what that is?
No, what is that?
You don't know what iatrogenesis is?
No.
But it's the leading cause of death in the modern world, Sean. Now, this is my issue with the whole problem, is that, or the problem with this. If iatrogenesis is the leading cause of death in the modern world, why don't we all know about it? What it is hospital and medical error. It's the right drugs at the wrong time or the wrong drugs at the right time. And so what that means is by the time you land up in the hands of, the best doctors, the best drugs, the best hospitals, the best surgeons, there's still a very high chance that you're not going to make it. And so this is the allopathic model of care, the medical model, right? As opposed to the wellness model, which is, being proactive as opposed to being reactive. It's about being holistic instead of mechanistic. Let's only focus on X, Y, and Z instead of realizing that the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone, connected to this. And so understanding this should give you enough motivation to go, I got to do something about this now. I have to be proactive. I don't want to. And don't get me wrong, where would we be without the best doctors, drugs, and food? It's life-saving. But let's not wait till it's broke to fix it.
Absolutely. We'll link your social media handles and your books below. Thanks for coming on, Andi.
Thank you so much.
Yep, check her out, guys. See you next time.